Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted. So I do have, Aminah, a few topics that I thought we would start with, but we're also going to spend a little bit of time taking questions from the audience after we talk for a little while. But also, I think we'll just see where the conversation goes, and we'll take it from there.
Okay.
Okay. So when you talk, need you to, there you go. Otherwise, everyone's not going to want to hear me this whole time. We're actually all here to hear about you. So one of the things I thought we could actually start with, because I don't know how many people in the audience are familiar with all of your work, is talking a little bit about the importance of where you grew up, Poindexter Village, and what it was prior to being Poindexter Village, and a little bit about sort of the importance of place for you.
Well, I guess that place started at birth. From the time I was 3, I guess, when my father began to teach me how to observe my surroundings, then I was able to, I guess, draw upon Poindexter Village. It was such a wonderful community.
And when was Poindexter created?
1940.
And what was there prior to that?
The Blackberry Patch, which is where my mother and her family grew up, were born in this community. We were all born in this community.
Right, so Blackberry Patch was raised in the late 1930s to have Poindexter Village, which was one of the first federally funded housing projects in the country, I believe.
It was completed in the summer of 1939. And the first residents of Poindexter Village began to move in 1940. And we were among the first.
And so this was a pretty vibrant community with all of these wonderful characters that reappear in your work a great deal. Like, I remember the Crow Man, and there was a lady with a lot of chickens. I remember these characters come up again and again and again in your work.
Because they're people. They're real people.
Right, so this isn't fictional.
Oh, no. Oh, no. No, absolutely not. They're real people, everyday people.
And all of the details that you see in your work. So let's talk a little bit about what your father used to do with you when you were little, about how to see and then how to translate that into drawings.
I couldn't talk. Many felt that I just wouldn't talk, but that was not the case. There was something physical inside where I couldn't talk.
But you could understand.
I understood everything. And my father says, I'm going to teach you how to speak through art. So I began to observe the things that he taught me. He would say, "What do you see?" I would take out my little notebook. A lot of people used to laugh at me. They just didn't know. So I would take out my notebook and begin to draw. Those little notebooks from age 3 to 5 and more are still at the home of my mother's, my parents' home, after they moved out of Poindexter. And I will say that Poindexter Village was removed as well. It isn't owned, the land isn't owned by the people. You have to catch the paths of its history in order to keep it moving.
So Poindexter Village has recently, just in the last 3 years or so, been
Even now,
has been raised and replaced with, I actually don't know what is there now.
nothing.
I had assumed, and there was actually quite an outcry in Columbus with this idea that they should keep Poindexter Village there. But I was very intrigued by your response, which was, even though this place has very deep meaning for you, that in fact this is actually part of the history of the land, and that means that things move on, right? That it's part of the longer story.
I love change. I love change. That's where the innovation and invention of life and humanity comes in. The millenniums coming up, I love them.
Now keep in mind that Aminah does not have email. She doesn't. So it's not that you've adopted all of the technology. What is it about the millennials that you respond to?
Change.
Why? Because they're doing
Because
things
they will move. They will move the life as God sees it. You see, it isn't their light. It's the light that belongs to God, and He gives it to all of us.
And what is it that the millennials seem to embrace change very readily, that you respond to them so much?
I think that a lot of it is the technology, but also the seasons. You see, there's a lot of work that goes into the seasons, the 4 seasons. I've been privileged and humbled to see this change in the different seasons, like the winter
Like
of
last winter.
yes, compared to the winter of 1950. So you go back and forth and see this
What happened in the winter of 1950?
snow up to here.
Okay, snow up to here, in case you didn't actually hear that.
But the summer was very unusual because you could take dyes, beautiful dyes.
Dyes as in like color dyes?
Yes, yes. You get a little alum and go out there and, because we didn't have paint. You know, there's no such thing as paint. You made your paint. You made your dyes, your colors, so that you could paint if that's what you wanted to do. And, of course, if that's what it was.
So was this part of your father working with you to sort of take what was in your head and to be able to begin to create it in these notebooks or these little books? Or when did you start taking art lessons?
I guess when I was in junior high school, I had a professor, a teacher named Mr. Durant at Franklin Junior High, and the parents came to the school, and he told my parents, he says, you should put her in Saturday morning classes. So that's what they did.
But by then you were already drawing, you were already creating, you had already started really sort of becoming an artist on your own.
But I wasn't an artist. That's not what I am. What I am is kind of like a pathway.
You are the pathway.
Well, no, the work that was given to me, the gifts of my father, the elders of my family and community, those are the gifts.
So you are the conduit through which the gifts
Yeah, yeah.
become
I would-
realized.
Yes, yes.
So that has to then be related to, so this is one of those wonderful things where Mina and I have spoken and had conversations over the last decade, and every time we have a conversation, I learn something that I didn't know. And the last time we had a conversation, I asked you about this body of work she's just finishing, and I said, so do you know, how do you know when it's done, right? How do you know when the body of work is done? And Aminah said to me, well, I visualized the whole thing in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And we started having this conversation about, I just assumed that it was like you would just make, I'll make the next thing, I'll make the next thing, I'll make the next thing. So can you tell us a little bit about sort of how you see a body of work in your head?
Yes, I will give you an example, like the presidential suite. No one asked me to do anything on the first African American president, except for Marlena from Hammond Harkins Gallery. And I think you were the first to see this one rag painting. Now, when she said this, I said, yes, I will, because it was all planted there. It would only take time.
Right, so here's the beautiful thing, is that, so you see every single part of the body of work before you create it. And if you've been watching some of these things up here, you know that these are not uncomplicated pieces to create. And they often have a lot of text, and they're often densely worked with buttons or whatever. Is you can see the whole thing.
And you understand it.
Well, I don't understand it until I can see it all done. Because I can't conceive, actually, of how you see it all at once.
I think we have to go back to the time I was 3, when my father taught me how to observe my surroundings. It's not just looking. You have to study things. You have to study the way the moon changes, and when all of these stars, you don't see that today. There's a lot of things you don't see in the seasons. It's about the seasons.
So what would he do with you to get you to really begin to see what was around you more deeply or clearly or in more detail?
Well, all I can say is he would say, now, Bryn, what do you see? And I say, take out my notebook and my pencil, and I begin to draw. If it was a summer day, I would draw dandelions or beautiful flowers dancing. If it were spring or the winter, I would draw a large block of ice because it was cold. And I would do different kinds of drawings that kind of speak to the seasons, because all the seasons were not the same. They were all different.
And is that why when you and I speak and we talk about you would reference like the winter of 1979, and I can assure you I have no memory from the winter of 1979 that's as specific as you have. Is that why you can remember them so well? Is because you've actually made them indelible by then recording them on, in drawings or in writing or in some other way?
1979, I went through Africa with a group of people from Cleveland. We stayed together as a group, but when it was time to move on into the communities, then each of us had our own expertise in learning. And one of the things that I learned about this season, the summer of 1979, was that it was remarkable. I haven't seen a summer like that since.
Is that because it was so creatively fruitful for you, too? Because you were in Africa?
I think that had some things to do with it, but it also had a lot. You know, you can take the mud and make some beautiful, beautiful dyes. You can take another season at the same time, and there's nothing, because it doesn't work. The seasons make a difference in a person's life.
Yes, definitely. So, and when you talk about the seasons, are you just talking about the seasons of the year? Are you also talking about like seasons of your life, seasons of creativity? Like how do you think about that?
You can't disconnect it. It all goes together. The seasons of one's life, or the life of a plant, a life of a human being, a life of humanity. You can't disconnect that. It belongs together because it is together. Now, whether it's good for whatever it is one wants to do with the land, or people, that has not.
Something just occurred to me. If you visualize, the single body, the bodies of work that you've been doing, and let's say the Ragmud series of books that we acquired at the museum, and the presidential suite, which you just finished, etc., is it actually that all of your work is a single body of work?
A raganon.
A raganon. Can you describe for the audience what a raganon is?
If you had a pencil, it's R-A-G, G-O, and then an N, ragan, and N-O-N, non, ragnon. It's gone, raganon.
And some of these are 40 feet, 60 feet long, and they unroll or they unfurl, and they all have these many different elements, some of which can be removed, and music boxes, so that the idea of sound being embedded within this body of work. Every piece that I know of yours, like that has some kind of sound element. Sometimes they're hidden, sometimes they're right out in front. Why the music boxes? What was so important about incorporating the music boxes?
Wake you up on Judgment Day.
So the raganons, you are conceiving the whole thing all at once.
All at once. And then if there are 2 or 3 different bodies of work, then they're all conceived. It's just a matter of time. Like the thimba that's on my table.
Right. She's working on this now. This piece that you're working on now.
I have no idea how large it is, but I know exactly where everything is. I know what I've done, I know what I have to do, but there are also surrounding pieces that go with the raganon.
The raganon is the central core, and the rest of the pieces are also are part. I mean, like peripheral, but they enhance the sort of they give detail to some of the raganon, some of the pieces that are within the raganon.
Yes, they give detail. This one particular body of work, thimba, which is my great aunt, but she could be anybody's aunt, and I'm sure many of us have gone through some kind of experience in that sense.
In what sense?
In the sense that they're elders. You know, she brought my younger sister into the world, got on a trolley car, 91 years old, lived to be 105 to tell her story.
That is impressive.
Very. That's a long journey.
And just to mention something about the raganons, because I think this is important to understanding that about the sort of about you visualizing the whole body of work in your head, is that Aminah's studio is her home, and her home is, when was your house built? It was probably
26.
Okay, so it's a 1920s cottage style bungalow. So some of these works are enormous, and as she says, you know, this piece is being worked on as it's in her living room, but she can't. There is no place in which it all gets laid out together. So you don't ever see the whole thing until it's fully complete. She's working on sections of it at a time, because you know what the whole thing is supposed to look like, right? Whereas I come in and I'm like trying to pull it out and trying to see it, because I can't see the whole thing all at once.
And it's heavy.
It is heavy.
I've been working on that piece since 1958. I was a second-year student at CCAD.
That's great. Great. So this idea of time is very
Means
different.
nothing.
Right. I mean, it's just like you've been working on this work for as long as you have been working on the work. I mean, it's
Yes, yes.
And your whole home is full of work that is in progress, is in different stages of being realized physically.
Yes.
Aminah has this wonderful little sign actually in her foyer of her home that I took a picture of, that really admonishes people to what do you remember which one I did? Which one I took the picture of?
Yes. It was the basket makers on 17th in South Carolina, where they sit and make their baskets. I knew that because I was there in 1979 and 1983. My son and I went to Sapelo and toured.
Right.
And so I remember that. I remember.
Yeah,
You can't forget it.
It's this remarkable, and she has this wonderful thing that is right in the foyer of the house, which says, "Be nice or leave." I think we should have that hanging up in a number of places.
You could have taken it.
No, I didn't want to take it.
Well, I'll make you one.
All right, you can make me one.
Okay.
We'll put it in my office.
Okay.
Yeah, so what I have always loved, and the reason why I mentioned this is that the way you have this remarkable ability of making your entire environment it's not about being, making it artistic. It's about making it yours. That it sort of creating the world in the, writ in the way that you want to see it, or that you see it in your head. And that's what I think has happened with your house, is that it has become increasingly and more you-specific.
I hope it doesn't fall in.
There's only a few people in this audience who've actually been to Aminah's house, so we can appreciate that sentiment. It has already been added onto once, and there is a large piece in the center of the kitchen. So this is a 1920s kitchen. It's pretty small, that was supposed to be in this Brooklyn exhibition, and they couldn't get it out of the house because she built it in this space, and then there was no getting it out. So it is the thing around which you move to get to the other rooms in the downstairs in Aminah's home. But one of the other things, I think it's very easy to assume, looking at your work, that it is entirely within a folk tradition. But I wanted to start with the fact that you had been, really trained as an artist, but also, who is your favorite artist?
Well, I just don't believe in artists or folk artists, but I love Elijah Pierce.
Look him up. There's a little bit of information about him on the internet.
Yes, he was born in 1882 and died in 1984. But he was such a humble and man of God.
And he was part of your neighborhood.
Yes, he lived street down from me.
And he was also, am I remembering this right, he was also a barber?
Yes.
But he was also an artist. And it's this idea of it really being a part of the community, this,
He was
stories.
loved. He was loved.
Yeah. And he was one of the people who told you great stories that have now been incorporated into your work.
Yes, I have done a body of work on Mr. Pierce, and because he allowed me to. And he still has a lot of that work at his home in North Carolina. He and his wife, but he has passed, so it'll find its way wherever.
So I thought that maybe we could have an extended period for questions, because the most interesting stories that Aminah tells are not ones that are probably prompted by me. So maybe if we could have anybody who has any questions for Aminah, or we'll just keep talking. But
may I say something?
Of course.
I think you have been wonderful. The Toledo Museum, and especially you, who saw something in my humble stuff. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Aminah.
I am very, very grateful for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And not only do you see something, you understand it.
Thank you. It was one of those wonderful moments. I remember standing in your studio, and we're in this room that is tiny, and it's full of work. And Aminah is pulling all of this work out, and we're trying to decide what was going to come to the museum, what's going to come to the museum. And I see this little book sticking out from underneath one of the stacks of paper, and I say, "What's that?" And she says, "No one is interested in that." And I'm immediately like, I want to see that. Because I'm interested in the thing that no other museum or curator would ever. So I'm like, oh no, no other museum's never been interested in that was a remarkable moment in your studio where just being introduced to the breadth of your work and finding something that was going to really fit into the Toledo Museum of Art's collection was actually incredibly, it was a real moment of serendipity because you want to have the thing here for this collection that is absolutely the right thing to be here, right? Not just to have something of yours in the collection, but to have something that is the right thing. And that's why so we have these 10 artist books, but they, there's also many of the artist books have cases, and they all have multiple books inside them, and some of them come with sculptures, and so it's like having an entire sort of museum of Aminah's work, just encased in this single body right here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, do we have any questions in the audience?
Just looking at the slide right now, the chair. Could you tell us a little bit more about the chair?
Oh yeah, I don't know. There's the picture up there of you in the chair. Oh, sorry, it actually just changed. It was the picture of you in the chair that you made.
Oh,
From.
okay.
I call it.
You just take a bunch of stuff. When the weather is nice and when the seasons are nice and get stuff. Bill Warmel, who was the carpenter at where I worked, he put wood nails in this chair so it doesn't move, so it would stay.
But it was made out of things that you just found?
Oh, yes, and things that I made to put on it, yes. The seat is a very, came out of the ground, Park of Roses. Came out of the Park of Roses. A vine, the seat. So I kind of covered it with some parts of it with leather and carved it.
Okay.
Yeah. And then these mud people, and they're real people.
The mud. I'm trying to picture the chair. So, are these people that you've made out of the mud?
Yes, they're all over the chair.
So there's this material that Aminah uses called hogmog. That is, your father gave you the recipe for hogmog, right? And what is it made out of?
It's made out of mud.
Not just mud.
No. All kind of glue. With the little children, you use Elmer's glue. It won't bother them. If you use skin glue, animal glue, cook it. It's nice. Or plant glue. It's very nice.
So a lot of Aminah's work actually is the sculptural work is held together or created using this material that she has created herself, right? Which I can assure you gives our conservation staff conniption fits. Because it's not as if you can actually tell them exactly what's in it, because it changes over time.
The seasons change.
Right.
And every season is not the same.
That's right.
Every glue that you cook up, it's not the same.
And there was a wonderful story that's in a number of your books and whatever. You just reminded me about making soap. That your family used to make soap in the backyard. And
Yes.
I don't know, has anybody here ever actually made soap?
Yes.
Probably.
I'm sure some of the elders like myself.
And I remember having a group of kids. We took Aminah to one of the elementary schools nearby, and this group of kids was absolutely agog at the idea you could make soap. What on earth? And then I think you told them what one of the key ingredients for the soap, which is the rendered bacon fat. And I thought these little kids were just going to flip right out. It never crossed their mind that that is actually where, soap came from. But anyway, it's a great story about your family and about the neighborhood was that you all used to do this.
It was common. And one of the things that I love about the new millenniums is because they can go back and forth.
Between the past and the future?
Yes, because they are the future. And they can teach us so very much if we listen and not just with our own soul, but there are souls out there all over humanity. And this new group of people, little young people, are really marvelous. I think they're wonderful. They give us change.
They do.
And sometimes we don't want to move.
Yes.
That's a mistake.
Thank you. So, any other questions for Aminah?
For those of you who have questions, feel free. There are microphones in each aisle, so if you don't mind coming up to the microphones, then we can make sure everyone can hear and we record the questions. Thank you.
I had a question about, you said that you did not speak for a long time, and I'm wondering about when you did and how that came to be. And then also, I'm guessing you were a very unusual student, or your life in school was very different from other students, perhaps? And what was it like for you?
I didn't
so
hear.
I'll repeat it.
Okay.
So she asked about, going back to the story about the fact that you couldn't speak when you were little, and so she was asking about how did it happen that you then began to speak, and sort of what was the sort of what happened there? When did you begin to talk, and what was the story around that? And then I think by extension is a question around sort of, were you a pretty unusual student when you were growing up through school? That you were different in the classroom or anything like that? What was your experience in school?
Can I first say that if there were anybody who was different, it was the community, my family, because they all taught me. They deserve the credit for how this community of people were raised, the young people, and I can say, no drugs, no alcohol. It was a very, very unusual community. But that's past. It's time to move on. And that's why we have our new millenniums. And I like them, the changes that they make. I think it's so wonderful.
So Aminah, what about when you did begin to speak? When did that happen? What happened that made that change?
I was 5. I began to make words. I never began to speak in a conversational way. And it was accepted by the people of my family and community. But my father protected me, and he would not allow, while he was around, for anyone to make fun of me. Because
you were just speaking in single words or...
When I was 5,
yeah.
But before then, no. I just didn't speak. I didn't know how to talk. So he taught me how to observe my surroundings. And I did the best that I could. And I owe that to him, the button work to my mother, and the insight to the elders of my community. I won't forget them, and I will always give them the credit. You know, how does one learn? One learns through the family early. And it's up to the individual, I guess, to continue if there's inspiration. And there was always that.
Yes, I was just curious, where were you when they called you to tell you about the MacArthur Award, and were you surprised?
Oh, was I surprised? I thought they were talking about somebody else. I thought, well, I never heard of this, all of this money and the MacArthur. Never heard about that. I thought it was general art. I thought they wanted a body of work. That's what I thought. So I had my feelings about all of this money, and I think it should go back into the community who made it possible for me. And for communities of people.
I don't know if everybody knows, but that along with the MacArthur Fellowship comes several $100,000 over the course of 3 years or 4 years?
5 years.
5 years. So that is free and clear. There is no requirement on this money, and it really is intended actually to be for people in any profession. Some of them are artists in many different ways, but it's actually intended to be, as a way of utilizing it for whatever it is that you feel is important. If it's important for you to pay off your house, then that's what you spend it on. If it's important for you to make seed money to do something else, that's entirely up to you. So the money comes free and clear. The money does not have specific requirements.
Money is never free.
Oh, I'm sorry. Money is never free.
Never free.
It's been very interesting hearing you, and much enjoyed it. I was wondering, have you always made your living from your works? And if so, have you felt any great sadness when you've had to sell pieces to make a living and to see them disappear?
No sadness. I think that it's been inspiring in the past 20 years or so that my work has inspired others to want it, to get it. But before that, no, the work wasn't really selling. But it didn't matter to me because I was able to do the work. Now, I didn't just make art at home. I worked a full-time job, parks and recreation, working with children, raising a son, and eventually taking care of my mother. So there was a lot involved, but through it all, I continued to do my work. Up at 4 o'clock, hot coffee, donuts, and you work. And then get your family together, and then you go to work. So, no, I did all that, had to. Had bills to pay. Those were some of the hardest times of my life. But somehow we get through them. We get through all of that.
Thank you. I
Pierce's work. I have two quick questions. Do you have older siblings? And did Mary Frances Merrill, the artist, did she live in your neighborhood also?
So there's two questions. Did you have older siblings? And also Mary Frances Merrill, did she live in your neighborhood? Did you know her? Or did you know of her?
She's from Columbus.
Mary Frances Merrill?
Was she a member of St. Dominic's Church?
I'm not sure. I was asking you. I wondered if you knew her.
Well, maybe that was her last name was her married name. But I had a very dear friend, Mary Frances Costin. I don't know if this is the same one.
Is she an artist also?
I don't know what that means. I think we do our work and pass it on and hope that it will help future generations or the generation at hand or those to come. I just hope that, pardon?
Oh, sorry, the chair came up again.
Oh, where's the chair? Oh, that's oak wood with the cross. Mm-hmm. That was hard, but it was fun.
That was hard.
No, yes, and I think what helped me get through this period was the art. Even the little children at the rec center, oh, they loved art, they say. Leave Miss Robinson alone. She's drawing in her head. You see, they even knew.
I love that. I think there's a question over here.
I was wondering if you'd be able to tell us a little bit more about how, like, the process you went through and what you did with the new Insight exhibit that just came out here at the museum.
So actually, I'll just interrupt here and say that Aminah didn't do new work for the Insight exhibition. We chose a group of works that were a selection from the body of work that we acquired for the museum. So she didn't have anything to do with the specific selection.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Yep.
Okay.
I was so happy that you took on the books, thanks to Marlena and the Hammond Harkins Gallery, all of the people at the Hammond. They're wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful, and they've been wonderful to me. I think you worked with Marlena.
Oh, yes, we worked very closely
Oh,
with Marlena.
yes, yes.
So I think
yes.
we have one more question, and then I think we'll probably wrap it up. Yep.
I see in your work of art a deep appreciation for your ancestors and for the past. And I'm wondering if there are also elements of your visions for the future and for your descendants.
I only heard the last part, my vision of the future. The other part I couldn't hear. Did you hear?
So she's said that she sees a lot of sort of an appreciation for the past in your work, for the stories, and what she's curious about is what do you see as a vision for the future and for your sort of descendants, for who comes after you?
That's why I do the work. That is why my time in life is spent in the work. I'm hoping that the new millennium will continue to do their work, but also kind of walk back and just view people of the past, but continue on their own path.
Sort of the looking back and gathering from that tradition, but moving forward.
Yes, staying on their path, because That path means change, and change means innovation for our humanity, and it also means a way of life that can't die if it's changing. It's a lot to give to generations to come. It's very important.
So thank you, Aminah. Thank you for coming today. Thank you all for coming today, and I hope you enjoy the remaining sessions in the conference. It's been a pleasure for all of us to be able to host you here at the museum, and we hope to see you soon. And let's give a round of applause for Aminah.
And for you.